Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Well done, OP. Sounds like you've handled a challenging situation with a high degree of professionalism and strategic thinking. Your approach to the malicious compliance not only demonstrated the workload you manage, but also created a situation where the partner had to face the consequences of his demands. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. I made all the decisions. Keep me informed of everything. Okay, you asked for it. So I work for a large professional services firm. I have a couple of partners above me, and the general practice is that they let me get on with the project management, and I give them a heads up on what they need to know and do when necessary. One of our partners recently came back from working overseas for a few years and has no clients or work of his own, so me being the nice guy that I am, I bring him along to a few of my client meetings and introduce him as the partner on a number of big jobs I've sold. To be clear, he did nothing to develop the work or sell it, but we need to have a partner to front up any job. So instead of going with the flow, this guy decides he wants full briefing notes from me before every meeting. He wants me to write down scripts for him with what he should say so it looks like he knows what he's talking about and isn't just a waste of space. I'm working 80 hours a week on the jobs I've introduced him into and tell him I don't have time to write out everything for him, but we'll brief him on what he needs to know before every important call and tell him what he needs to say. Not only doesn't he thank me for helping him out, but he calls me and starts screaming down the phone to me that I don't communicate enough with him and that he wants full briefing notes before every meeting and copied into every meeting, etc. Also puts me in my place that he's the partner and that he's the one who will make all the client decisions. He also has me in tears on the phone and proceeds to keep telling me what I need to do for him. Fine, here comes the malicious compliance. Each job probably generates about 40 to 50 emails a day between me, my team, and the client. Lots of info being exchanged and the client asking for decisions to be made and calls to be scheduled. I tell my 3 teams to copy him into every email. Every question asked by the client is directed to him to answer in every email. Every little catch-up meeting he's invited to, no matter how trivial or important. Fast forward a week or so. He's got about 500 emails he's not read. His diary's booked out with dozens of meetings. He's got dozens of requests for decisions that have slipped through his fingertips. Every meeting with the client that he dials into, he looks visibly more stressed as he's overwhelmed and can't keep up. He's continually dropping the ball in front of clients and other partners. Other partners are approaching me and asking, what the F is he doing? And he can't say a word to me because everything he needs and every request that was made of him was in one of the 400 emails a week that he's now copied into. Update. Found out that the partner has spent the last few weeks trying to get me dismissed or disciplined from the business. He waited until the job I brought him into was finished, and he got credit for the $1 million in billings. He's got a couple of probationary partners that he's in charge of to say I'm unprofessional and a bad project manager, etc., despite the fact I never work with them or have anything to do with them. He's also poisoned the head of our department against me by telling stories and basically making crap up about me, including getting another junior partner to claim that another big job I sold this year wasn't actually my sale. It's all very, very stressful at the moment, particularly as it's still lockdown. Slight bright side, however, I've been told by a very, very senior partner that he's done this before to people, also that he wasn't wanted back in the business. Another very, very senior partner in another team also had noticed what was going on and raised it with my boss's boss and is now giving his view to my boss. Finally, I've got a load of client and upward feedback coming in that is superb. Pretty sure that the D-bag partner's hoping that I react badly to the exaggerated and bull feedback he's orchestrated and quit or lose it, or ask to involve HR. This would be an own goal for me, as everyone would then close ranks behind him as I would be seen as a troublemaker. Not going to fall into that trap, going to smile, say that I take the feedback and will work on being better, then going to cut way back in the extra work I do for them that I don't get recognized for. Going to then sit back and watch him suffer the crap storm of consequences, knowing that the partners I respect and the junior staff all know that he's a douche and don't want him in the business. don't want to work with him, and have zero respect for him. Also, knowing that my salary is still going into my checking account each month and he has the increasing stress of trying to hit his billables target with limited support. Oh, and those other partners who backed him in his lies? Well, it's hard to be successful as a probationary if, over a short period of time, the people who are working with you start to quit for better paid roles, especially if they hear on the grapevine how you treat team members and how you treated the guy who recruited them into the team. You're doing the right thing. Hopefully he'll learn to get out of the way so ops can do their thing. Sometimes a manager's best course of action is to do nothing and collect the paycheck. And our second story. Neighbors tried to get us kicked out. About 12 years ago, my wife and I moved after she got a job that was 20 miles away, and we decided to split the distance. We were going to have a little more income and started looking for a place in sleepy beach town that was well located for our needs. My wife has always been good at charming older landlords, and so, as we often had done, we just drove around looking for rent signs. We ended up finding a place with a quad of 4 buildings owned by an older lady who was living off of her rental income and lived in one of the buildings. We lived across the courtyard from her in the top story. Down below us were B&B. B&B were an older couple who lived part-time in New York City and part-time in sleepy beach town. So they were unpredictably there, and when they were, often had parties. They also complained a lot about us making noise. Now, to be fair, we did. Both my wife and I are tall and heavy, and we were living on the second floor of a very old and creaky building. The doors didn't shut well and occasionally slammed of their own accord. I also played video games late, and the floor was really paper thin. We could hear our neighbors all the time as well. So we apologized. They complained to the landlord, who they'd known for 15 years, and never to us. We apologized directly to them and gave them our number and said to call anytime they had a complaint. They never called. I worked on walking more quietly. I moved my consoles and gaming rig to an office on the opposite corner of the building from their bedroom and got headphones to replace my speakers. We rarely had parties or friends over, but if we did, we always gave advance notice and invited the neighbors. They kept complaining to the landlord. At first, she was pretty nice about it. They complained about the old tenant talking on the phone too loudly too, she told us, and even B complained once that the birds in the courtyard were too loud. It turned out B was the real problem. She complained about everything, and other B just went with it. Then there was a big event. I was playing games in my office. I had headphones, but it was an online game and I was talking into my headset. Suddenly, there was a very loud knocking on our door. Surprised, I jump up and to the door. It's neighbor B. She's visibly drunk and very upset. I was too loud and she couldn't sleep. Later, I found out the problem. They had company who they'd been partying with and as such was sleeping on the floor of her office that night and thus heard me more than usual. We were asked by the landlady to come over for a conversation. It was heavily insinuated that we were going to be asked to leave. We were told basically either you leave or they do, and I've known them longer, so I have to pick them. We just asked that B&B, who'd never talked to us directly, show up to this meeting so we could talk directly. We're told that's fine. So in the meantime, my wife and I both start looking for other apartments, and I start reading up our rights. I didn't really know what I was talking about, but I had enough to make our old landlady worried. Also, the other neighbors found out what was going on, and one of them in particular, who'd heard the whole saga, got very upset with the landlady and made it clear she was ready to support us and fight this however she could. Very fortunately, my wife worked her magic again, and we found another apartment that was immediately available. The new landlord loved us, the apartment was bigger, it was on the beach, it was only slightly more expensive. We were doing well and could afford an upgrade. So finally, the day of the meeting arrives. We went over to the landlady's unit, and immediately I knew how this will go down. B&B aren't showing. Their play was to harass the old lady until she does what they want, and it was working, so why bother? The landlady knew it was crappy and clearly felt very uncomfortable about it all, but they're basically family, and she's not going to do anything about it. So we told her, we're going to make this easy for you. We're moving out this week. No notice, and we want our full deposit back and a promise that you'll say nice stuff about us if we ever put this apartment down as past residents. She's relieved and agrees, even though we were expected to give 30 days notice. We move. The new apartment is great. We lived there 6 years, And despite likely being under market price when we got it, the landlord never raised our rent. We plotted to get back at B&B. We were never really serious, but we started an in-joke with friends about marching by the old apartment banging pots and pans at odd hours. It turned out we didn't have to. Incensed neighbor kept us in the loop. We were paying a bit too much, and it took the landlady months to find a new tenant. This was her livelihood, and apparently the loss of income from us leaving suddenly caused some strain on her relationship with B&B. Finally, after lowering the rent, she found a tenant, a 40-year-old recently divorced man. The incensed neighbor gave us glorious details about the new tenant carrying his massive, brand-new stereo system up into the apartment. A month later, after living there for 15 years, B&B moved out. It's unfortunate that you had to deal with such challenging neighbors, but it's great to hear you eventually found a better living situation by moving to a new apartment on the beach. And our last story. HOA tried to use my private property. My property has a private easement going through it to a community behind me that also has a main entrance on the other side, which has a designated bus drop-off pickup area for the community. I'm not actually a part of this community's HOA. My easement is considered the back entrance that only a few of the homeowners use to get in and out. It's for ingress, egress only. The easement is paved and only wide enough for one vehicle to get by, except where it widens at the main road, which is enough space to stop and get the mail while not blocking the roadway. I've been here 10 years without a bus stopping here, but this past year, they've decided all of a sudden that 3 families need to drop off and pick up on my property, which means they're parking in my yard/grass and using one of my parking spots as well. I decided to take a stand to protect my rights. Consulting with an attorney, I gathered evidence regarding the clear restrictions outlined in the easement and the lack of prior consent for such activities. I initiated a dialogue with the HOA, emphasizing the breach of agreement and the potential legal ramifications. Ultimately, the HOA had no choice but to acknowledge their mistake, leading to a formal apology, a revision of their policies, and a commitment to respecting homeowners' rights in the future. Your actions not only protected your property, but also contributed to a clearer understanding of the rights and responsibilities involved. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.